ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Retro Warriors episode 353. Woo. As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard, Chris Saturn.
Hello.
Hi, Saturn. I didn't hear your woo, so I thought my internet died. I think Discord must have just clipped it. It does that to your woo sometimes. You hit that perfect Discord noise suppression pitch.
It's the dog whistle of woos.
Anyway, we're back for another show. We don't really have any housekeeping this time around. If you want to jump to the topic this week, there's a timestamp in the show description.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the video games. So people in our Discord had been talking about this game Tunic.
Now, I had actually, I saw that people were talking about it, but what sold me was some of the video essayists that I watch had talked about how interesting its way of tutorializing the game is by hiding little manual pages. And that's what convinced me to try it.
So I went and I looked at it and I was like, I don't know. And I was waiting for my Steam Deck to come. So I was like, well, I'll just play that and then it'll kill a couple days while I'm waiting on it to show up. And I start playing it and I realized right off the bat that one, it is doing everything it can to look like a Legend of Zelda. I don't want to say clone, but it's trying to look like the Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, that first one.
Yeah, specifically NES Legend of Zelda, all the way down to the manual that you keep finding pages for in the game.
The graphics don't. The graphics are isometric and highly detailed, and but it's got the aesthetic of the original Zelda.
Aesthetically, it's wanting to be like Legend of Zelda.
Right. And
I start playing it, and I get a few minutes in, and I'm like, oh, it's not. It's a Souls-like.
Well, kinda. The difficulty in combat is.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. And then when you die, you have to go pick up your soul to get your currency back. I mean, it's pretty soulsy.
Yeah. You
know what I mean?
And you drop so little currency that it barely matters if you die.
Yeah, so I went into it wanting it to be just a Zelda clone in this new Tunic style of kind of weird esotericness, which kind of weird opaque esotericness is also a Souls staple. But really, I kept bouncing off the combat. It's just too hard for what I want it to be, and so I don't know. I bounced off of it and I made it through, I think 3 dungeons. And I started uncovering some of the, I guess, I don't even know how to say it without spoiling anything, but some of the deeper stuff about the narrative, right? And as I'm going through, it reaches a point where it's getting just far too difficult for me to continue progressing.
Right.
And what happens was I went and I was like, well, I'll turn on infinite stamina because there's 2 cheats in the accessibility menu, infinite stamina, infinite health.
Right.
And I go and I turn on infinite stamina and I'm still just dying constantly. And then I turn on infinite health and it's like, well, I mean, now it's so easy that there's kind of not really much to do anymore. And I eventually ended up giving it to my daughter. And she loved it because she couldn't die. And she thought it was super cute. And she played it for like an hour, which is pretty long for her.
Something.
And I don't know. I appreciate what it's trying to do. I just don't think I want it.
I like the way that it encourages you to explore. And I love the little manual pages. Those are adorable.
Super cute.
And I feel like they add a lot to the game because they do teach you enough to make you interested in finding stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like that most of the manual is in this gibberish language because that's not how manuals work. If anybody doesn't remember the NES era, manuals were in your language, assuming you bought a game from your region anyway.
Yeah.
It's weird that so much of it is intentionally obscured and trying to hide itself from you. I get that's what they're going for, so it makes me not want to look online to just get the answers for how to do things, because I've already, by kind of parsing what the manual says, by what little pages I've found, kind of found some things that feel like cheats, even if they're not.
Yeah.
And so that's neat and I like it, but it's also so obtuse that where I'm at right now, I don't know where else I could go, but the boss I just had to fight was so insanely difficult that I don't think I'm supposed to have been able to fight it.
Yeah.
It was just unfairly difficult. Like, regular enemies are already tough because they do enough damage that you have to avoid most attacks or constantly go back and heal up.
Yeah.
But this specific boss I just got to was so difficult that I turned on invincibility, and at that point, it doesn't really feel like I'm playing the game anymore.
Yeah. It what I think it misses from like Souls design, from properly Dark Souls, is Dark Souls is pretty good about pathing. It's pretty good about not really letting you, like, you can get places you're not supposed to be yet in Dark Souls, but it either really, really illustrates like, hey, you are not supposed to be here,
right?
Or it gates you in some way. Like, you'll show up and the very first enemy will be so brutally difficult that you're like, oh, I'm literally not supposed to go that way yet. Right. Like, there's no way that's right. In Tunic, I kept having situations where I was like, well, it's hard, but maybe, like, it's not so hard that I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not supposed to be there yet. It's just hard enough that I'm never quite sure if it's trying to, like, gate me out of an area to funnel me where I need to be, or if it's just up in the difficulty. Like, I have a really hard time telling.
Yeah, and also, I feel like this is a misinterpretation of how retro games were to begin with, because you constantly hear people online talking about how back in the day all the games were Nintendo hard, that they were all just ridiculously difficult.
Tell that to my Game Genie.
Right? And yeah, one, you could cheat back then, and two, the hardest enemies in the first Zelda were Lionels, and you can avoid those pretty easily. They're not difficult to avoid. You're not having to do that dance of blocking and dodging and all that stuff. You just walk past them, and odds are they'll shoot the other direction.
Right. And
so it was difficult if you walked into it, but odds are you weren't going to.
Yeah. I just, again, I appreciate what the game's trying to do. I don't think I want what it has to offer. Yeah. And now visually, it's the same problem I had with Cuphead. The game is visually fantastic.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
What a beautiful looking game. Yeah. But the gameplay is just not there for me. And as much as I love looking at the game, I'm just not down for the cycle of gameplay it's wanting to inflict upon me.
I'm struggling with it because I really like the level of exploration it gives you. It's striking that same nerve for me that games like NES Zelda did back in the day, where I really do feel like I am open to go wherever as long as I can reach it, and I might find something cool if I bomb here or look behind this. Yeah, and that part I love, but the combat is so just brutally unfair that I don't know if I'm going to keep bothering with it.
Yeah, like if they came out with an easy mode for the game, oh man, I'd be all over that. Or just added a couple cheats that, like, I don't know, halved the damage you took or something. Just something a little more granular rather than just like no damage at all or everything. Yeah. I also, I forgot, we did have some housekeeping. Guy's here at the end of the show. It's Guy's doing his after party at the end of this episode. We had a whole talk about it before.
Yes. We did.
I did also play some of that new Kirby game, Kirby in the Forgotten Land world.
Forgotten Land. Yeah.
And I gotta tell you, what a really awesome game.
Nice. Yeah. I've been meaning to start it. I bought it back when it came out. And I still haven't started it yet.
I've kind of bounced off of the last few Kirby games just because, like, they're not bad. They're well designed. It's just something about, like, there's not enough there to want to go back to it. But Forgotten Land, holy cow, it's so much fun. It's what I like is Kirby. I mean, we talked about it on our Kirby episodes. Kirby, they seem to insist that Kirby has to have a gimmick most of the time. And it's like, oh, well, now Kirby does this new thing. Well, now he's made of yarn. Well, now he turns into a submarine. Well, now, whatever the thing is. And it detracts from just regular Kirby gameplay.
Right.
And in this one, what is it called? Big mouth mode or whatever?
Mouthful mode.
Yeah, it's there, but really, it's kind of few and far between. It's fun and cute when you get to do it, but it does not take over the majority. The majority of the game is still regular classic Kirby gameplay. And getting that in fully rendered, 3D and very open levels is really cool.
Yeah.
I've been having just a lot of fun with that game, and it's oh man, it's so fun. On the complete opposite end of the Tunic spectrum, I'm there for the gameplay all day long. Nice. So much fun.
Yeah, I bought it when it came out, but I haven't sat down to play it yet. It was on my list of potential games to start when I started Tunic, but I don't know why. I just haven't been interested in powering up my Switch lately, and I don't know why.
Oh, I don't want to say too much, but I didn't power up my Switch to play it. So yeah, no, did not play that on Switch.
Through some other means,
yes,
that, are totally above board.
I don't have to comment on that. Did you have anything else, or are we good for news?
So, real quickly, I finally finished everything in Nier, and by that I mean not only did I finish the game like I did several weeks ago when I last mentioned it, I went and replayed the entire Xbox 360 version, the original, and I got all the achievements in that, and then I went back and got all the achievements in the new version.
Holy cow.
So let me tell you about, like I told previously about the most bullshit achievement is that stupid fucking flower you have to grow. The second most bullshit achievement is upgrading all of your weapons, which requires these rare drops from enemies that are not super common to begin with. And it was like 4 hours of me fighting this one enemy over and over before I got the items that I needed in order to actually progress.
Can I just say that you've been playing a lot of Nier?
Yeah.
And at no point have I heard you go, yeah, it's really fun, having a good time. Never once.
The thing is, I enjoy the game so much, but the side quests and achievements are all, I feel, mean. Like I think, and I don't think it's mean as in they didn't know what they were doing when they designed it and they accidentally made something much harder than they intended.
Yeah.
I think it is intentionally a knock or a deconstruction at the idea of side quests and achievements to begin with. And I shouldn't have done it, but it did because I wanted to. For the Xbox 360 version, for the old version, I just straight up modified my save file to give myself everything.
Smart.
And it made it much faster.
Yeah. Let's do the news.
Yeah.
First up, a prototype for an unreleased Gex spinoff called Gex Jr. has been found and dumped online. Finally, we are back to the 90s era of Gex Fever. Are you excited, Saturn, for Gex Fever?
You know what? I loved the first Gex.
I only ever played the third one.
Oh.
And I played it so much.
And that first one, the one that's just a 2D platformer.
Yeah.
Like gameplay wise, it's not great, but it's okay. But Dana Gould's delivery throughout it is fantastic.
Yeah. City Connection has announced they will be porting several Taito Sega Saturn games to the Switch, including Layer Section and Galactic Attack, Puzzle Bobble 2 and 3, Metal Black, Elevator Action Returns, and others. So this is exciting news.
Yeah, this is not the first Saturn game to end up on the Switch, but I'll take more.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like there are enough Saturn games that emulate well enough that it's weird to me that we're not seeing more releases. So I'm excited to see that just in a general sense. Ron Gilbert is making a new Monkey Island.
I know some people who will be very excited by that.
Monkey Island is...
I don't think either one of us are those people, but...
No. I don't know. This is big news. Monkey Island is extremely beloved game.
Absolutely.
I never really loved either of them.
Yeah. What do you mean either of them?
Well, there was 2, weren't they?
There's 4.
There's 4 Monkey Islands?
Correct.
What? I thought there was only 2. I know there's Monkey Island, and then there's LeChuck's Revenge. Is that the second one?
I think so. And then
I didn't realize they had 2 more.
I don't remember what the third one is, and then the fourth one was Return to Monkey Island, which was on PS2 and PC in the early 2000s.
See, this is why we don't cover point-and-click adventure games, because we know nothing about them.
I knew enough that there was more than 2 games. I'm just throwing that out there.
Despite the lack of E3, Xbox has announced they'll still have an E3 event in June. Likely others will too. Again, the whole canceling of E3 just feels kind of...
Actually, there might be 6 Monkey Island games.
Oh my gosh. What? That's
Anyway.
That's a lot, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I expect we'll see other companies do this as well.
I expect the same. I mean, really, these days, like, they just release stuff to YouTube anyway,
right?
You know. So what does it matter if there's actually an event that someone is standing at?
Yeah. Well, it does. I have seen reports from marketing people saying that an event with a crowd makes people more excited than if there wasn't a crowd there, because they know when something is exciting because the crowd is cheering.
I don't know that I believe that any more than I believe the idea that laugh tracks and sitcoms make them funnier.
No,
you know?
For a lot of us, no, not at all. But there are
I know
people...
why it's there. Yeah. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's Misk Foundation, that's a lot of words that my mouth isn't used to, now owns a 96.18% stake of SNK. Now, they've owned a lot of SNK for a long time.
Right.
And then now they're the majority shareholder.
Overwhelming majority
shareholder.
So
that's is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
GOG.com has announced a renewed focus on classic titles moving forward. What? And they even brought back the Good Old Games moniker.
Yeah.
And is using it to classify certain games that they consider good old games.
Yeah, as opposed to all the shitty old games they published in the past.
I was going to say, which begs the question, are they publishing not good old games? Yeah. And now they're like, let's get back to basics, boys.
Well,
we need to wheel this back
Monkey
in.
Island.
Like, oh no, we're gonna get letters. Remedy and Rockstar have announced remasters of Max Payne 1 and 2.
That's exciting to me. I didn't think that was going to happen. Last I heard, those two companies did not get along. So
yeah.
I'm glad to hear that they have made up long enough to do
Well, Rockstar doesn't even seem to get along with its own employees, so I don't know how they'd get along with anybody else.
Right.
Bandai Namco has removed Miss Pac-Man from the ROM for Pac-Land, released as an arcade archive.
Did you see this?
No.
They replaced her with a different character who is it's Pac-Man's new wife, who wears a hat instead of a bow, and she has different color lipstick, and her name is Pac-Mom.
Okay.
And Junior Pac-Man that was previously there has been replaced with a new character that I think they were saying was named Pac-Lad or Pac-Baby or something.
Uh-huh.
And
well, they already had a baby Pac-Man before.
Right, but that one is not part of this, because Baby Pac-Man, Junior Pac-Man, and Ms. Pac-Man were all made by GCC.
Yeah.
And we don't know how much of them are owned by AtGames now, but Namco seems to be wanting to avoid the whole fucking family and is just replacing them with new characters now.
You know what? There are some franchises where this would bother me, but when they're basically all just yellow circles,
right.
It's hard to get,
for me,
too
what
upset.
What bugs me is that these were legit characters made by some other company, by other people who deserve credit.
Yes.
And Bandai Namco seems to be going as far as they can to not pay them. That said, those people who deserve payment have also sold off their rights to AtGames. So I don't know if they do deserve payment or recognition anymore.
The wide world of video games rights holders.
Yeah.
Nobody knows, and everybody wants to avoid it.
Yep.
Let's talk about Crows, which is the company, or I guess really kind of the person that made the Stanley Parable and is making the new version of the Stanley Parable.
Yes.
Which Saturn and I are both very excited about.
Indeed.
And the Crows has a development blog, which is mostly just parody, and it's great. And they announced that after they had gotten approval that they had access to the store page for the new version of the Stanley Parable, they put up the image for the game and have
I thought it was the old version that they did this on.
Was it the old one? I thought it was the new one, but either way, they added Guy Fieri to the image. of the Stanley Parable.
But not immediately.
Totally alphaed out, and then have slowly been adding opacity to the Guy Fieri layer of the Stanley Parable image on Steam until Valve asked them to remove it. So,
I guess the game had gotten just too close to Flavortown, and that was the line.
I'm so stoked on the new Stanley Parable. Oh, I can't wait. What a fun, weird game.
Right. I felt that was a good news story to transition from.
It is, because this week we're talking parody games.
Yes.
Which are games that are also parodies.
Yes. Or they are games that feature parody.
Yes. So obviously we have to answer the question, what is a parody game? And we have to go all the way back to Hegemon of Theos, who Aristotle attributed as the father of parody, and we'll just walk forward year by year until we get to 2022.
When did one of them make the Atari?
That would have been later.
Okay.
After ancient Greece, you know?
Was it?
For people that aren't aware of what parody is,
yes.
A parody game is a game that imitates another work as to create a caricature or satirize that other work.
Yes. And if you don't understand what a caricature or satire is, you should probably look that up before going forward, because we're going to use those words.
Including game-related jokes and taglines is not necessarily parody,
right?
But many parody games also include those.
Right.
And now you may be asking yourself, Justin and Saturn, why are you doing such a weird topic? And got nothing better to do. I don't know. And
was this a Trog again?
Is Trog a parody of Pac-Man? I mean,
no.
You know, I'm going to say definitively yes.
Really?
Yeah, and I'll fight anyone who says otherwise.
Yeah, I say otherwise.
Really, the answer is that we both like comedy.
We do.
And I feel like we both enjoy parody.
That comes across in our show, that we both enjoy comedy.
I hate comedy.
I hate shit that's funny.
But yeah, no, we both like parody games, and really we just kind of wanted an excuse to talk about parody games, sort of, because they're sort of their own, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a genre.
No, it is because a classification.
Yeah, it's a relatively popular thing. Is the best that I can say.
I don't even know that it's a relatively popular thing, because I feel like parody is underrepresented in gaming compared to where it is in other media.
I feel like comedy in general is underrepresented in gaming, especially if you're talking about something that is not a point-and-click adventure game.
Right.
But I do feel like in the realm of comedy games, parody is pretty big.
Yeah, that's fair.
So let's talk about what makes a good parody game.
Right.
And I think most importantly, it should be a good game first and foremost.
Yeah, I don't know that I would agree with that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
now certainly part of the parody could be that it is intentionally bad.
Right.
But
and I think that if that becomes a very difficult needle to thread at that point.
Yeah,
but
I think if it is intentionally designed to be bad, it should be done in a way that is bad but still enjoyable. You know, because like I've played games that were like definitely trying to be sort of bad on purpose, and they were just bad.
Yeah,
and it was like, this is not enjoyable.
Right, and there are way too many of those games that think that they are funny enough to pull off bad gameplay, and they're not.
Right.
However, there are also some games with some intentionally bad gameplay that is done in such a obviously tongue-in-cheek way, and the rest of the experience is funny enough that you can push through it and appreciate the work as a whole, even though the gameplay moment to moment was just god awful. Stuff like I Want to Be the Guy is just mean, and the gameplay is bad, but people love it. And it is obviously a parody of a lot of things.
What was that one that was supposed to be a parody of like horror games? Deadly Premonition?
Yeah. Oh god.
Was that one that was like that kind of was trying to do this thing where it's like it's so bad and shitty, like these old bad shitty horror games, but it did that by just being bad and shitty?
Yeah. That is just a bad and shitty game.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess you're right. It's a balancing act. It doesn't necessarily have to be a good game, but the game that is there, if it is bad, needs to be presented in a way that you still find enjoyment in how bad it is.
Yeah, and definitely if you make it a good game first, then it makes it much easier to be a good parody game, because then you just have to work on your comedy and writing, which we all know is just super easy.
Right. That's the easiest part. And, timing is so easy in the video game format.
Oh, absolutely. Because everyone will reach the same things at the same time.
I do want to spend a few minutes talking about what makes a bad parody game.
Yeah.
And I know you have a specific flavor of bad parody game that you would like to talk about. But I guess we can just jump into that, because you had put a list here, which is parodies like Pissed, Star Warped, and Who Wants to Beat Up a Millionaire.
Yeah.
And those remind me so much of, in like the early 2000s, Scary Movie came out.
Yes.
And it was a parody. And it was it was
a parody of a parody.
Right. It's two parodies deep.
Yes.
So, and it was okay. It was like, hey, what if we did that same parody again but went completely off the deep end?
Right.
And
I
then
don't know that I would say it was okay. The first one I wasn't a big fan.
And then all of a sudden that opened the door to like this entire early 2000s C-tier movie industry of really bad parodies.
I don't know that it opened the door. I think it just held it open, because it had been open for a while. With there had already been stuff like Hot Shots or Dracula Dead and Loving It.
True, but they weren't. I feel like those actually had some effort put into them, and they were not farmed out to the degree. I believe a lot of it was like the same studio.
Yeah, and actually, when you get to the third and fourth Scary Movie, those were made by the Zuckers, the same guys that made Airplane and Naked Gun. So they ended up bringing in talent after shitting out a couple of movies.
Yeah. And I feel like these games are kind of in that category of like the most obvious form of parody that you can have.
Yeah. It feels like somebody read one page of a Mad magazine and was like, ooh, let's run with that idea, without actually reading the rest of the context to figure out what the joke was.
Right. So it's laziness is what we have written here is if your jokes are lazy, then and your parody is lazy, and it's just, hey, let's take the most obvious jokes that we can, cram them in here, put a kind of punny title on there, and shove it out the door. That's how you get Pissed.
Yeah.
Which is the parody of Mist, which Andrew requested we talk about.
And the thing is, most of those kinds of games, especially from that late 90s, early 2000s era, not only was the parody bad, the gameplay was barely there, too. It was It was barely interactive at all. It was just a deluge of mediocre juvenile comedy, and that's not a good parody.
Yeah. Let's talk about types of parody games that we normally see in video games before getting into specific examples.
Sure.
I feel like one that you see a lot is kind of direct parody of internal IP. Right. Because it is cost effective. You already own the product. Things like Parodius are a good example of stuff where it's like...
Also, it's easier to poke fun at yourself and not look like a dick.
Yes.
So it also makes the developer give the appearance of humility, that they are able to laugh at their own product
while having none. Konami. We have parodies of specific genres. Which you see frequently enough. I do feel like the lazy parodies we were just talking about sort of fall into this camp in a bad way, but you know. And then I do feel like you do occasionally see parody of non-game works.
Yeah.
which I feel are a little fewer and farther between, but they do come up from time to time where someone wants, like, again, Star Warped, you know, where someone wants to make a parody in video game form of something that is not traditionally a video game.
Right.
So let's talk early and kind of classic examples of parody games. And we already mentioned it, so let's start with Parodius, which we've done, I believe, a whole episode on, didn't we? We did Parodius, right?
We did Sexy Parodius.
Yes, the sexiest of the Parodius games.
Indeed.
Parodius was put out by Konami, and it's really just, hey, what if we took all of these Konami shmup characters and sometimes non-shmup characters, crammed them all in a game, and made it goofy.
Yeah. It started as just a parody of Gradius with a few elements of Twinbee sprinkled in, and as they went on, they just started making fun of all of their shooters.
Yeah, for sure. And there, I mean, at this point, there's a lot of them. There's kind of the spin-off Odomedius, which you don't like.
Yeah, well, it's not good. If you just wanted to look at some titties and play Gradius, I guess it's still a bad game, but you can buy it.
And I think what makes Parodius feel so successful as a parody of kind of Konami, and I don't believe this is the only like sort of like all-star cast parody thing that they put out. They put out a platformer on the Famicom. I want to say, was that the one?
Yeah, Konami Man and YY World.
And it had like a whole bunch of Konami characters in it, and it was like just another parody game. That one was not as good as Parodius.
No,
it was like okay, yeah, true. But what makes Parodius so successful is that the level of it, right? Because sometimes when you have parody, you want it to be subtle. And Parodius
isn't exactly subtle.
No, it goes the opposite direction, and it goes so over the top that it comes back around to being genuinely enjoyable and funny. And also, it's a good shmup made by a good company that knows how to make good shmups. So it's kind of one of those things. Which brings us into sort of the Hudson version of it.
Yeah.
Which is Star Parodier, which is a parody of the Star Soldier games.
Yep.
And I feel like
it's a better game than it is a parody.
Yes. I feel like it's a little more straight-laced. It's less poking fun and more just kind of like, I don't know. It definitely wants to make fun.
Yeah,
but not nearly to the degree that Parodius does.
Right.
Parodius goes like almost off the deep end a lot of the time.
Yeah, Parodius feels more like a Zucker's Brothers movie, where it's just like slapstick, goofy all the time.
Right.
And Star Parodier feels more like it's just a Star Soldier game that they replace some of the graphics with goofier things.
Yeah. We do have to mention LucasArts point-and-click adventure games because they were pretty parody-filled and satire-filled games.
Even the more serious ones often had some pretty good humor in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we can't talk much about them. I've played several of them and have not enjoyed any of them and did not finish any of them.
I would give note to Monkey Island, like we said before.
Right.
I have not finished any of the Monkey Islands, but I've played enough of them that I can definitely speak for the quality of the humor is good.
Right.
Also, Maniac Mansion and its sequel are parodies of the evil mad scientist kind of stuff. And they're goofy and fun, and if you enjoy point and clicks and you want something that's goofy and fun, they do it really well. And their writing is consistent. And it's a little juvenile, but
but in a fun way.
Yeah, it fits it. So,
let's talk Rampage because this one's fun. Rampage is very obviously a kaiju movie parody.
Yeah.
It's a pretty simplistic game, so there's not a whole ton of like high level in-depth humor going on. It's really just a visual gag for the most part. But I think it does it well, you know.
And it got turned into a movie with The Rock.
Oh, no. Oh, I forgot about the movie. Oh, my God. Was that at least a parody?
I don't know.
It didn't look like one. It looked like it meant it.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah. But Rampage is I feel like it's kind of in the same camp. But what were those Neo Geo games? Was it King of the Monsters?
Yeah.
They made 2 of those, which were also kind of parodies of these, kaiju, big rubber suit, monster movie type of genre. And those, honestly, I think those are a better game than Rampage. Specifically, the second one is just very, very good. And they're very
Rampage, though.
They're very silly. They're very cartoony. They're having a lot of fun with it. Kid Dracula, we talked about previously on... Yes. Did we do a whole episode on Kid Dracula?
I don't think so, but I know
it was just in
we've
Castlevania
spoken about
episode.
It a few times, and also when the collection came out, the Castlevania Anniversary Collection, I made sure to note that because it got a localization for the first time on NES.
Which is more Konami.
Yes, that is true.
They seem to really love parody over at Konami.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, even the first Castlevania was a parody.
True.
When you get to the ending credits, it's clearly making fun of all those old monster movies.
Obviously, especially with names like Fred Fucks. Which is... and I mean, definitely it's a more subtle parody. And I feel like over time, Castlevania kind of lost that. Not even over time, it lost that pretty fast.
By the second game, really.
Yeah. But the first game really was like, hey, let's make, poke fun at these universal monsters and include them and sort of exist in that space. Although, I don't know.
And that's really something that Konami kind of did throughout all of the years that they made video games, which ended some time ago.
Yeah,
because even the Silent Hill games, almost every Silent Hill game has a fake ending where you can end up getting abducted by aliens or learn that a dog was in charge of all of the monsters. And, just something dumb and silly, even in their very serious games, will have these little parody nods that you can access.
And really, even looking deeper at like the Metal Gear franchise.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of like 80s action movie parody. I mean, really, the entire character of Snake is
Snake Plissken.
Is a direct parody.
Yeah.
They parodied action movie posters for some of the cover arts. Like it's
also MGS2 lets you unlock that skateboarding game.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
On a skateboard.
Yes, I mean Metal Gear Solid. Like again. Very serious games, but very, very much parodies of action movies, and this is, again, a parody of a non-game work, which is a game franchise that's like, hey, what if we took all, like, the kind of nonsensical shit from action movies and made them a serious action game?
Yeah, and try to treat it seriously while we had somebody say lolly lule lo.
And it's funny because, like, I feel like if you were to ask Kojima, like, hey, is this parody? I feel like he might say no. I feel like he'd be like, there's some silly moments, but this is earnest. And when he talks about the Metal Gear games and he talks about making them, he's like, I loved American cinema. I wanted to make that, but in a movie. And it's like, man, I don't know. Like, I don't know definitively where he lands on it, but I feel like based on interviews I've read with him, he'd be like, no. This is serious.
It's hard to say because he also seems to be somebody who enjoys a good joke.
He does have that impish Miyamoto-like charm from time to time.
Who knows?
But yeah, Metal Gear Solid is definitely a huge one. I feel like it really, like, Metal Gear Solid, the first one, the first 2 Metal Gear games, like, there wasn't much. But Metal Gear Solid, like, immediately hits it in high gear, like, just Otacon as a character. It's like my Japanese animes. Like, come on.
Right. Even the old Metal Gear games have some goofy
There's
stuff
a little bit,
too.
yeah. There's a Clay Fighter. You put Clay Fighter in here.
I hate Clay Fighter so much.
Which is very much a parody of the
whole founding genre of that era.
Kind of. It feels like it's mostly making fun of Mortal Kombat, of like, oh look, it's real mocap that we made into characters, but it's these stupid characters like snowmen and a blob of goo, all fighting each other. And it was always silly from the beginning, but it felt like it was trying to make fun of this sort of era of like fighting games having to be as bloody and gruesome as possible because everything wanted to be Mortal Kombat. So it was
especially
like,
once you got to Sculptor's Cut. That one,
yeah,
even the cover tried to make it look like it was this brutal, mean game, and it's really just a bunch
it was
of claymation
definitely not.
characters
It was just a mediocre fighting game.
That's being very generous to Clay Fighter.
Okay. And also in that same sort of camp is you have fighting games like Waku Waku 7 is kind of a parody of fighting games.
True.
And really, I sort of feel like I might lump like Marvel versus Capcom in here.
Maybe. I mean,
ish.
It's clearly inspired by the comics, and they have that same vibe. So I don't know that I would necessarily say it's a parody.
Yeah. Let's talk modern examples because there are a lot more.
Well, one
ahead.
we missed there was Conker's Bad Fur Day, which
I just didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, but it was such a huge thing when it came out.
It was, but was it even a parody?
Yeah, it was a parody of all of their collectathons and how cutesy and family friendly they were, and then suddenly they released this one that is the opposite of that.
I guess. I mean, it feels like conceptually a parody, but then playing the game, it just feels like
the humor is
bad comedy.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's good humor, but there's plenty of humor there.
It's definitely attempting to be funny.
Yeah,
I'll give you that much.
I never cared for really much of any of Rare's games, so it didn't sell me, but I knew a lot of people that were huge fans of it when it came out.
Yeah. Let's talk more modern examples, and I think we're both excited to talk about the Stanley Parable.
Indeed.
Which is just a fantastic
I finally got my achievement,
game.
By the way.
Oh, for not playing the game for 7 years?
It was a 7, it was 5 or 7 or something. You have to not load the game for many years, and then when you load it again, you get an achievement for having not played it for years.
Stanley Parable is interesting because it feels like it is making fun of the idea of video game narratives and narrative design in video games, but it's not really making fun of like a specific game or genre. Right. You know, it's not like, oh, the cake is a lie. Like it's not steeped in that video game culture. It's very much its own thing of like, hey, let's make fun of and parody the idea of narrative design in video games.
Yeah. And really it's poking fun of all narrative in a way.
True.
Because it seems to satirize the way any kind of story is told. It's just able to do so in a unique way because it is a interactive game.
Yeah. Like my knee-jerk reaction is to be like, oh, it's a parody of like walking simulators.
But it kind of is a walking simulator.
Yeah, it kind of just is one.
Yeah.
But it's so good at and I think this is what good parody does, and this is kind of what separates from bad parody for me, is it subverts your expectations, you know. And when you go into something knowing like, oh, I know it's a joke, then you immediately have a whole pile of expectations of what kind of jokes they're going to make now that you know, like, oh, it's a joke. You know, you go sit down in Spaceballs for the first time and you're like, all right, I can see that it's obviously making fun of Star Wars. Right. What are all the jokes that Mel Brooks is going to make about Star Wars?
A lot.
And yeah, a lot. And so it creates this situation where, and I'm not calling Spaceballs lazy. I think Mel Brooks is his own... I think it's its own special brand of intentional laziness that it's aware of. But I think this is what separates it from games like Pissed or what was the Star Wars one called? I guess Star Warped, where you go in and they make exactly the jokes you expect and nothing else.
Right.
And Stanley Parable makes exactly the jokes you would never expect over and over and over for the entire time.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, you're like, they could literally do anything. And I'd be like, all right, like, they're able to just completely level any expectations you might have. And then as soon as you start to form new expectations, it levels them again. And I think that's what makes it such a wonderful parody of the relationship between the player and the game.
Yeah.
And that's my gush about Stanley Parable.
That's fair. Yeah, it is. I am a big fan of any kind of metafiction that tries to include the player as a character in the story.
Yeah.
And so anything that subverts my expectations, I'm down for. So that was what got me involved in Stanley Parable in the first place.
I've not played it, but you did. Would you call Doki Doki Literature Club a parody? I mean, not really. Kind of its own separate thing. I didn't. I just saw the trailers for it, and I was like, that looks parody-esque.
I would say it's more just a meta game than it is a parody.
Yeah. Let's talk.
I think those are separate things anyway.
I think it can be.
Sure.
Let's talk Saints Row.
Yes.
Which is pretty directly a Grand Theft Auto parody.
Right. While also just being a parody of all crime fiction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Over the top insanity. And what I love about it is that it
doesn't even try to take itself seriously.
It doesn't, but then at the same time, it has no preconceived notions about player power level or what you should or shouldn't be able to do. They're just like, hey, we're just going to unlock the candy store and you just go nuts.
Yeah.
You know, whereas Grand Theft Auto has a little bit more of a curve to it where they're wanting you to like work up and build these better bases and stuff and like, get more stuff and a better house and everything. And Saints Row has that, but literally, and to be clear, we are talking about Saints Row the Third.
Yeah, the later games in the series.
And it has that, but it already starts you off basically at the top of the mountain.
Yeah, and it gives you the option to unlock a fighter jet immediately.
And it's interesting because the Grand Theft Auto games, when they started, the first two, and kind of the third one's sort of Vice City.
Yeah. They were parodies of mobster movies.
They were also, they felt like parodies in their own way. And then they started going the route of, no, we're not just making fun of mob movies. Yeah. We are our own thing with our own, narrative drive and our own
interest.
And our own principles, and we want to tell you this story about these people that aren't just making fun of these movies.
Right.
And Saints Row came in and said, that's dumb. What if you just kept doing what you did in Grand Theft Auto 2, but in HD?
Yeah. Saints Row basically was like, what if Grand Theft Auto 2 in HD, but also you get a dildo bat?
What a sell. It's like you read it off the back of the box. Let's talk Retro City Rampage.
Yeah.
This game came out and I loved it. This is a parody of Grand Theft Auto 2, pretty much. And this is one where it's kind of a parody of 8 and 16-bit gaming. It includes all kinds of, you can if you truck around the city enough, you can find the turtle van from the Ninja Turtles cartoon. You go down in sewers and there's little sort of Mario jokes. It's just really packed full of a lot of.
It seems to just parody the late 80s and early 90s
pretty much
in general.
Pretty much, yeah. But what's good about it, because it could easily have fallen into that camp of hey, we just sort of Mad Magazined it, where literally everything all of the time is some kind of joke. It's mostly going to be shit that you expect. But the trick is, Retro City Rampage is also just a really good game.
Yeah.
It's a really fun parody of Grand Theft Auto 2. Yeah. That's a blast to play.
If it had been a bad game, I think all of its parody would have fell flat.
Totally. Because I don't know that I would say it's great parody.
Yeah, it's not super well written or anything. It's goofy and tongue in cheek, but the gameplay is strong enough that it carries it.
It's exactly the jokes you expect, and I think this is where stuff like this can kind of get away with it.
Yeah.
Because the game is, whereas a bad parody movie that has all the bad jokes that you would expect, that's all it's got.
Or something like Meme Run. Which is just bad.
Yeah.
It has no redeeming qualities.
No.
And so its bad jokes fall flat, and also the game is bad.
Yeah. Saturn, list all the things that Frog Fractions is a parody of.
Yes. Just the band Yes, and nothing else.
Frog Fact, that's actually not super wrong. Frog Fractions is so out there that
it's difficult to describe or explain frog fractions.
I struggle to even call it parody.
I struggle to call it a game.
But it's like, I know that it is.
Yeah.
But it's just very...
So for people who haven't played Frog Fractions, first, play Frog Fractions. Second,
oh man,
is
it free?
The original version is still free. There is now a Game of the Year edition that is that costs money.
Yeah,
but it may or may not have Frog Fractions 4 hidden in it.
Yeah.
So if you haven't played it before, the basic game is a parody of old edutainment games.
Mm-hmm.
Only it doesn't make any sense, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. And then if you keep playing it long enough, it becomes a parody of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
There's some visual novel in there. There's some walking simulator in there. There's a courtroom drama in there. There's a West Wing parody for some reason. There's a lot in there, and it's very difficult to describe the game in general, or the series in general, for that matter.
Correct. Is Glittermitten Grove the sequel?
That is Frog Fractions 3.
Okay, so this is the second one, Pony Island?
No, the second one was the ARG that people had to play to find Glittermitten Grove.
I have Glittermitten Grove, and I booted it up one time, and I was like, "What the fuck is happening?" And I turned it off.
So Glittermitten Grove is a completely different, unrelated game made by Adult Swim that is just this little game where you play as pixie fairies and you grow your little town in a tree. And if you happen to dig around in that game, then you may find a door that happens to lead to Frog Fractions 3.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Can we talk about I Love You, Colonel Sanders?
Absolutely.
Because here's the thing. If you want a good dating sim parody, Hatoful Boyfriend is still out there.
Yeah, it's there.
Now, I Love You, Colonel Sanders, and you wrote on the notes, is it potentially a parody of consumer culture? And I don't know if it's a parody of consumer culture when it is literally an ad for KFC. And this is where we reach this weird fuzzy territory of like, is it making fun of KFC and branded games and licensed gaming? Yes, but it still also earnestly wants you to buy a bucket of chicken. But then that's so funny that does it then become a parody of itself? Right. Where does it stop?
Yeah.
I downloaded and then never played I Love You, Colonel Sanders, because I couldn't bring myself to do it.
I watched a video on it. That was enough for me.
It's not very long, is it?
I don't care.
I thought it was...
Just being honest.
I don't know why I didn't expect that response from you. It's not very long, is it? I don't care. So shut up.
No, I want to keep talking about it. I just could not care enough to play it. No, nothing will bring me to care enough
it's
about
like,
it to play it.
Chex Quest is a parody, for sure.
Yeah,
but it also still wants you to buy Chex.
It does. It absolutely does.
So is it, I mean, I guess it could be a parody with bad intention, right?
Yeah, you can make a parody that is also an advertisement.
There you go. Yeah. All right. So we've cracked it. What the fuck is Bubsy 3D? Bubsy visits the James Turrell retrospective.
So I'm guessing you haven't heard of this one. This is the description. The game follows Bubsy Bobcat as he travels through a nightmarish scenario upon visiting the real-life retrospective tribute of postmodern artist James Turrell. And it is obviously a fan game.
You don't say.
It's weird. I believe it was just a Flash game, if I remember right. They might have made a standalone executable version.
Yeah.
But it's such a bizarre it's such a bizarre level of parody beyond what a normal parody would be that it circles back around to being funny by being completely nonsensical and also somehow taking itself completely seriously.
But it also wants you to buy a bucket of chicken.
For some reason.
I mean, we're not sure why. No, I want to look this up now. I've never heard of this.
There's another similar one. I want to say it's Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden is another one that for some reason I always think of at the same time.
Yeah, that one I've heard of.
Yeah.
Because that's the RPG, right?
Yes, it is a JRPG based on the basketball game Barkley Shut Up and Jam.
Yeah, and Space Jam apparently.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Abobo's Big Adventure.
Oh yeah.
And this was a Flash game that came out. This was the first time I remember playing a Flash game and being like, this is a really good video game.
Oh, yeah?
That's also a dumb Flash game. It's basically Abobo, the character from Double Dragon.
Right.
And he's going through different levels of this game that's split into all these different sub-games, and they all just are like parodies of NES games, but they star Abobo instead of anyone else.
Nice.
So there's like Zelda Bobo and Balloon Abobo and Punch Abobo and Contra Bobo. And they just put a Bobo in everything. And it's really fun. I wish there was like a remaster or something of this game. I'm sure that there's like no way it'll ever happen because of the amount of properties it just flat out steals.
Yeah.
But it's just really fun and dumb.
That is one thing about the Wild West of Flash games that I don't know we'll ever be able to recapture again.
Yeah. Is that there was a, I mean, if you like parody games, Flash games in the 2000s is where it's at.
Right.
Because, man, there were so many. I do want to jump into offshoots and derivatives briefly before the end of the show, but I also want to talk about 3D Dot Game Heroes first. Because 3D Dot Game Heroes is the best. And everyone should play 3D Dot Game Heroes. And I would never tell you to do something illegal, ever. But I will tell you that it emulates very well in RPCS 3. Runs very good. I
have tried to start that game so many times, and something about it just isn't clicking with me, and I don't know what it is.
I love it. Oh, I love it. It is a voxel graphics mashup of Zelda and Dragon Quest. I mean, really, it's more Zelda, but it has Dragon Quest like homage music and visuals.
Yeah. The graphics appear to be based on Dragon Quest, while the gameplay is clearly based on Zelda.
And you level up your sword, and as you level up your sword, it gets enormous. Wider and longer. So that by the time you're like a little ways into the game,
like 5 times the size of you,
it reaches a point where it like you start the game fully powered up in like a flashback sequence, and you have a powered up sword, and immediately you're going down this path, and there's enemies on the path, so you swing your sword, and your sword is the full width and length of the entire path.
Yeah.
And immediately it's so stupid that I'm like, I'm in love with this. This is amazing. All the dialogue is hilarious and making fun of Zelda and Dragon Quest. The music is so close to Dragon Quest music that I don't know how they didn't get sued.
Especially with Sugiyama.
It's just, I know, yeah. It's just so good. It's so fun, and it is forever trapped on the PlayStation 3 and your PC. Listen. Emulation of games you don't own is against the law, but it's hard to enforce, isn't it?
Yeah, and especially since From Software seems to have no interest in ever re-releasing it.
No, and it breaks my little heart. Let's talk offshoots and derivatives very briefly, because if we start going down this rabbit hole, we'll be here all day.
Yeah.
I had a question. Is Earthbound a parody?
So I mean, when it came out, it was seen very clearly as a parody of the whole JRPG genre. However, in the years since then, I don't know that it is still seen as such. Like, for me, I can go back and play it, and I absolutely see the parody there. Especially the first game is so clearly a parody of the 8-bit Dragon Quest games.
Yeah.
But by the time Mother 3 came out, it was its own thing, and it had its own fan base, and it kind of became elevated above parody just because
It did that Grand Theft Auto thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know if it's that. It's more that other artists wanted to parody or derive from it so much that it stopped. It was no longer based on what it was based on. It became its own thing.
I guess this raises a good question about parody and authorial intent, which is, can a parody be accidental?
Yeah. I think it could.
You know? And I think I would say that Earthbound probably, like, I don't know that I would fully say it's an accidental parody, but I don't think they were setting out.
Made it a parody.
I don't think they were setting out to make it like. I don't know.
Based on what I read of it at the time, back when it was still new, I think they intended for it to be a parody.
Yeah.
But over the years, it has become so beloved that it's hard to see it as such now, just because those people love it for what it is, not for what it is parodying.
Yeah. Let's talk Moon. I've not played Moon.
I have not yet either. I've read a lot about it over the years, and I am certainly interested in playing it, but I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet. But it feels more like it is a deconstruction of the genre and of games in general than it is a specific parody. So I don't know if it would really fit there.
Yeah. I guess that brings us to final thoughts. And it's mostly I have two overarching messages.
Yeah.
And one is play the Stanley Parable, and two is buy a bucket of chicken.
Three is play Bubsy 3D Bubsy, because it's the James Turrell retrospective.
All 353 episodes of this have been a massive augmented reality game from KFC to get you to buy chicken. And here we are.
But not their failure bowls.
Right. Would you call them failure bowls?
Well, I don't remember which comedian it was that referred to it as a failure pile and a sadness bowl or something like that, just because they just like throw whatever in there. I don't care. You got some extra mashed potatoes, put it in the fucking bowl.
That sounds like a Patton Oswalt joke.
It
just by the way it's structured.
Yeah.
I fucking loved those bowls.
Me too, but they're still just...
For people that don't know what the bowls were, the KFC bowls...
Do they not make them anymore?
I don't know, man. I haven't been to a KFC in like 15 years.
Right?
So you go to KFC and you just are like, well, a bowl. And they take... It's just like bits of chicken, and they pile on a big blob of mashed potatoes.
I thought they put the chicken on top.
I thought the chicken was on the bottom. I remember it being like a little casserole. It's been so long. I don't know. But so basically, they just cram mashed potatoes, gravy, chicken, and cheese in a bowl, and you just eat it with and corn, and you just eat it with a fucking spoon.
Yeah, they just mix it up.
And when I describe it, it's the most disgusting. It's like McGriddle level disgusting. But I can't.
I have a coworker who keeps trying to tell me that the McGriddle is the greatest thing ever invented. And I'm like, dude, you're a grown adult man.
In high school, I had a McGriddle a day for like a whole school year.
Gross.
I was a large high schooler. So just putting that out there. Anyway,
buy a bucket of chicken.
Buy a bucket of chicken.
Do they still sell it in the bucket these days?
I don't know if you get a bucket. They call it a bucket. I've never received a bucket of chicken except for when I go to like Walmart will sell you a bucket of chicken.
I haven't gotten a proper bucket from KFC since the 90s at least.
I feel like it's always in a box.
Yeah, it's been in a box since then.
Colonel Sanders, what are you fucking hiding? Okay. Give us the buckets.
They're busy turning them into signs.
We had a show in here somewhere. But
no, this was just a parody of a show.
But it's gone now. Yeah. You put in the notes, our show is a parody of Retronauts.
I said we are not a parody of Retronauts.
Oh no, we don't have anywhere near that money. Holy cow, man.
Nope.
Anyway, but we do have some money thanks to patrons over at patreon.com/retrowarriors.
We have just enough money to go buy Quap.
We have just enough money to buy Quap. And that's all you need.
Free.
Well, then we do. You're correct. But they keep us. They keep us. Pay for our hosting. They pay for some games. They pay for the occasional bucket of chicken. And
Popeyes.
Does Popeyes have it in buckets?
I don't know. I haven't been to Popeyes in longer than since I've been to KFC.
I don't think I've ever eaten at a Popeyes in my life.
Oh, they have pretty good gravy.
Ever once.
Gravy.
You can get Talking Wizards, which is a show where we also talked about the McGriddle. We did last episode.
Nice. It's Justin's only consistent feature in life. It's his
the McGriddles. I do realize that sometimes I make inside Talking Wizard jokes on Retro Warriors that you don't catch because you're not on it.
That's true.
You can get after hours. You can get early uncut versions of this show. This week, Andrew was on the uncut.
He was.
And I told a story about peeing.
I forgot that story already. It's so good.
If you want to hear that, it's $4. You can hear it.
$4 and you can learn about toilet perching.
Anyway, we want to thank the following patrons for their kind donations, starting with Suffer.
And Vince, the ShamWow guy.
What is a name? A miserable little pile of letters?
Neon Rocket Ship.
Look, all that nonsense may interest you, but I didn't come here for Egyptian History 101.
I did, actually. Jordan Ish.
Christopher Britt.
Slick Rick.
Ryan Walton.
And Lee Sparkers.
Are all the people we want to thank for making what we do possible. Thank you so much. Also, stay tuned after the ending theme. Our producer guy is going to be on for the After Party, which is the name of that segment. And I said it now, so I'll remember it when it is time for the segment. Anyway, thanks so much. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a minute.
Wait, we sign out first? Or
I don't know. Do you want to? Should we?
I don't remember how we normally do it now.
I don't either. I was just hoping we could go through it. Anyway, thank you for listening. And as always, let us cling together. Hi, Guy. Are you there?
I am.
Guy's like, I'm done. This is the worst production ever.
I was gonna no, that's Jon Stewart, but we'll get into that. I was gonna say that was the first smooth Patreon transition you've made ever, and then the whole fucking show went off the rails after that. So, You know
what? If we're gonna pick an episode to go off the rails, I feel like our parody and deconstruction episode is the one to do it in.
Yeah, that might have been the right one.
Afterward, people are going to call us geniuses for deconstructing our own formula, and that's also with the welcome to the After Party, everybody. Hi, hello.
I don't know if they'll be able to commend us because they'll be busy enjoying a bucket of chicken.
Right, or trying to find where the hell you can buy a bucket of chicken. Guy, do you know if KFC still sells chicken in actual buckets?
Yeah, I think I got a bucket of chicken one time.
Nice. Well, recently. One time, right? Recently, nice. Really. Yeah. And it was in the red and white stripe, the bucket?
Yeah, and it had a partition for the crispy chicken versus the not crispy chicken.
Well, that's fine.
Oh.
Wait, so is not crispy chicken still fried chicken?
I don't fucking remember, dude.
Oh.
I'm with Saturn. What the fuck is non-crispy chicken? Is that just regular cooked chicken?
Grilled chicken in there?
Is it boiled?
They do have grilled chicken, but I don't think that was in my bucket. I think maybe it was separated between wings and thighs or something. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
That sounds more probable than the weird thing you said.
I know they also have extra crispy.
Don't act like you don't say weird things.
Obviously, but I feel like you were like you just made up what was in the bucket. Because you were like, it had crispy chicken and then non-crispy chicken. We weren't going to ask what non-crispy chicken was.
I think in my head, I was thinking their sort of regular formula and then their hot, spicy formula chicken.
Okay.
I eventually put together what you meant, and it makes sense now. Yeah.
I just like the implication that you forgot what was in the other half and made something up and was hoping we wouldn't call you on it.
I don't know. They poured a bunch of mashed potatoes and corn and gravy in there. They just mixed it all up. I don't know what they did.
Could you ask for those sides and have them put it in a regular bucket for a Super Bowl? Would they do that?
That name's trademark, dude.
Oh, right. A mega bowl.
There you go.
Oh, what if we just asked for a superb bowl?
Just call it a Rose Bowl. Guy, hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm nervous because we have a whole other episode to record tonight.
Yep.
It cannot be this ridiculous.
I mean, it can.
Oh yeah, it can.
You're in control.
Wait, I feel like if it starts here, where are we even gonna go?
Yeah.
We've been talking about buckets of chicken for half an
I
hour.
figure your segment at the beginning of the show will excite you so much that it'll ramp you out of this.
Maybe that'll be it. Ramp me out of it. What do you got for us this week?
I guess a few things. One, Final Fantasy sloppy poop.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, Sasopfo?
Yeah, that one.
Oh, right. That's
Yeah.
Final Fantasy sloppy poop.
Yeah. What is it?
Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins: Turbo Hyper Fighting Edition.
Right, SOPFFO. It seems like sloppy poop. Okay, anyway, that one.
Featuring Dante.
I wanted to present sort of a counterpoint, and we talked about this in the Discord a little bit, to Saturn's description of the game.
Okay.
Yeah, because Saturn pretty openly did not like the game.
I didn't.
Well, I can't say that I love the game. I'm having fun with it, but no.
Yeah. I finished it. I must have liked it somewhat.
Right. His description of it was that it was very Souls-like. And I say that that's incorrect.
Oh.
Other than the fact that when you save at save points, enemies respawn.
Also, your health potions get refilled.
Yeah,
And
aren't
your
there
health
limited
potions
health
get
potions that
Yeah.
refill?
Yeah.
When you die, do you have to drop a point that you have to go back to retrieve something?
No.
No. You
Okay.
lose some of your max MP when you die.
Oh, that's important.
Well,
you regain max MP by killing things.
Right.
I see.
You build up, like, the gameplay loop is you do a special finisher to generate max MP, and it fills up your MP gauge. And by the time you get to the boss, you've got, like, I think it's 5 bars of MP or 6 bars of MP or whatnot, and each spell takes 1 bar.
Yeah.
And also, every time you do one of those finishers, which is a lot, the character feels the need to curse out the enemies.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh. Okay.
And they turn into like these red crystally things, and it's shatter. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. He'll like slam their face into the ground and then tell them to fuck off, and then they turn into crystals.
So it's not even like inventive fantasy cursing. He's just like, "Oh, you fucking shitheads."
A lot of that. Well, not that simple, but yeah, it's a lot of just like, go to hell and shit like that.
I think it kind of breaks my heart because speaking of parody games, this could have so easily been a good parody game.
Oh yeah.
If they had just run with the chaos thing instead of trying to pretend that they were taking it seriously, it could have been a brilliant parody.
Oh, it would have been nice.
But I feel like a Souls game, part of it is the combat, where it's reactive to the enemy, and every enemy has the potential to kill you, and et cetera, et cetera. And
I died to like every enemy.
And right. And like I'm playing it on, let's see, there's the default easy difficulty, right? And then I'm playing like one up above that. I forget what it's called, like action or something. I don't know. There's also
Chaos mode.
There's also a super easy mode.
Chaos is what you unlock at the end of the game.
Oh, they actually have a chaos mode?
Yeah, chaos difficulty.
Oh my god.
And maybe it's that I'm not far enough into the game. I've unlocked like one of the crystals, right? Be like one of the 4 fiends. What?
Up till there, I was not having too much of a problem. Mm-hmm. But after that, I started dying to fucking everything all the time.
So that maybe that's it. Because like from my perspective, like the trash mobs, I don't worry about at all. It's the bosses I have to sort of think about and strategize.
Yeah, it gets rougher as you go along.
All right, well that's something to look forward to. I've maxed out like one job class or whatever.
Nice.
Like one of the 3rd tier of job classes. I'm a sage, right? And I figure if I can just play that, then I'll be good. I don't care about any of the other classes at this point.
No, I maxed out all the jobs.
Yeah, because you're crazy.
Yeah, I'm a crazy person.
You're crazy. We've established this. It's fine.
It's not that he maxes everything out. It's that he does it and then he's like, yeah, I didn't like that game. And you're like, you played 450 hours of it. Yeah. And then you played it on a different platform. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you didn't like it. No, it was bad.
I would put its combat more akin to like a Monster Hunter game. to be honest.
See, I think those are too difficult for me too.
What?
My brain, you were just like, oh, I don't know if it's much like Mario. It's kind of more like Tetris. And I'm trying to reconcile.
So like,
I mean, obviously, Souls games and Monster Hunter are closer than Mario and Tetris, but you know what I mean,
right? Well, so you know how like in Monster Hunter games you have like it's very combo based, right? Where you have like a light attack, heavy attack, or whatever.
Not like PSO.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's dramatically more complicated than that. But just on the buttons, the actual buttons, you've got your few attacks, and then you got to block, and then you got to roll.
Right. Same thing. You've got that, and like basically what it is your MP, your right trigger, I guess, by default is your magic ability, and that's usually the finisher of your chain of hit combos. And so you have like a single hit finisher, a double hit finisher, a triple hit finisher kind of thing. And then you just kind of that's sort of your fighting cycle, and that's not Soulsy to me at all.
I just died so much because I couldn't figure out any of that.
So if I guess what I'm trying to figure out,
you maxed out every job and you never figured out the combat?
Yeah, not really well. No, I just hammered buttons until the things would die, and occasionally I found ways to not die as quickly.
See, this is what I've learned about Saturn, is that he has the fascinating ability, whereas I can play through 50 hours of a JRPG and not know how basic information about the game works, he can play through an equivalent amount of time in an action game and literally not know how combat works and be unable to explain it to you after the fact.
Oh, you mean like Yakuza?
Yes, where I'm like, oh yeah, and I got this and this combo, and you're like, I don't know. Do you punch people in that game?
I just keep hitting the square button until they fall down.
Yeah, and so I guess this all tracks is what I'm saying.
So I guess what I'm running around to is if anybody was put off on trying the game because you're like, oh no, it's going to be like an Elden Ring, Dark Souls type game. If you're sort of into, I don't know, brawlers or Monster Hunter, like that sort of quick combat system where you got combos and finishers and such. It might be up your alley. But also at the same time, it's not like super fun.
Yeah, it's also not, because of all of its different easy modes. It's not nearly as difficult as a lot of those other games. So I'll give it.
I like that guy you wanted to come and set the record straight so that you could give an equally unenthused review of it, but in a different way.
Well, it has inspired me to go back and play the actual Final Fantasy, like mainline games. Just to figure out, what the levels are doing, right? And where their inspirations come from and stuff. So on that note, it's interesting, right?
Yeah, on the loading screen before every stage, it tells you what game that stage is from. And then you just have to think back to when you played that game and be like, when the fuck was I in an area like this?
Yeah.
But it all looks just different enough that it takes me a minute each time.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm not. As soon as they announced that game, I was like, "There's no fucking way in shit I'm going to give them more than $19.99 for this."
I think that's a generous price for it.
Yeah.
And especially when it's a game I can't play around my child because someone's yelling "fuck" all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really gory too.
Oh yeah, there's also a lot of blood.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, your character is just coated in blood frequently.
Yeah, that's a upstairs on my gaming PC kind of game. That's how I'm gonna enjoy that one.
Well, it's on the Epic Games Store.
Oh, I won't be enjoying it then.
No. Oh.
Although it sounds like I'm not sure I would have enjoyed it anyway.
So you know how you frequently mention that you listen to podcasts and
I do.
The audio quality is kind of hit or miss on things that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, like major news networks or high production value shows that just record fucking Skype calls.
Yeah.
All right. So, and you've been listening to the Jon Stewart podcast, right?
Yeah, he came out with a podcast. It's a companion for his new show, which I haven't seen because it's on the Apple Plus, and I'm not going to do that. But yeah. And I think I'd recommended an episode to you, and you started listening to it.
Yeah. You didn't tell me that John records in a wind tunnel, though.
Yeah, he sounds fucking terrible, man.
It's
every
real
week
bad.
He's like, it's me, Jon Stewart. And you're like, where are you? I know you know how to use a microphone. You were a comic. Like,
Right.
I'm sure you're aware.
I mean, it sounds like he's recording on like a webcam mic in a room with no sound dampening at all.
He, you know, it wouldn't shock me if he was.
Or like they're recording his Skype audio or some shit.
Yeah, he sounds bad. It sounds bad.
I had a training at work the other day that was 3 hours long, and it was presented as a webinar where only the host could speak and nobody else could unmute themselves.
I just want to interrupt and say that I fucking hate the word webinar.
Yeah,
it just makes me want to like quit a job I don't have. You know what I mean?
So we're all in this training, and as soon as the guy starts talking, like 2 or 3 minutes in, we can tell he's using his area mic, and he is not facing his computer.
Oh no!
And so immediately the chat starts like pinging up with people being like, "Hey, check your microphone. Make sure your microphone is using the one on your headset and not your area mic." And that went on for over an hour.
Wow.
Until he was finally like, "Okay, let's take a quick break. Oh, the chat's really blowing up. I'm going to take a look at your questions. Everybody take a quick break, and then we'll come back." And then when we come back, suddenly he's like, "All right, guys, I'm back."
It was a parody of a webinar, Saturn. Give him a fucking break.
And like, and I don't want to
ahead.
discourage people from checking it out. Like, if you're into Jon Stewart, it's a good show.
Oh, it's a good show. Yeah.
He has very interesting guests and very in-depth conversations. It's just that fucking audio quality is real bad.
Yeah, I was watching the TV version of it.
Dude, we were watching the TV version of it, right? Like right before we recorded this episode, and he sits down with former Disney CEO Bob Iger, right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
And they're sitting in a. Oh, did you see that one?
I did.
Okay, and so they're sitting in a room, right? Like in chairs, facing each other, and there are 3 cameras in the room.
Uh-huh.
The camera, there's a camera that's on both of them, and a camera on each of them. The cameras that are on each of them are like really bad shaky cam, like the whole time.
Oh no!
And then the one that's on both of them is doing like a slow pan from left to right constantly.
Yeah, I had to just not look at the screen during the whole interview.
Yeah.
I went back to like baking or whatever the fuck I was doing.
Yeah, it's that distractingly bad. And I don't understand when you have 2 people sitting in chairs how you don't have a steady fucking camera.
Especially when both of them have been in the show business industry for as long as both of those people have been.
Listen, they're trying to do a Kurosawa thing where they have a lot of motion in the scenes, okay?
I'm guessing that the Apple TV budget is only enough for unpaid interns or something.
I find it endearing that you think there is a budget. I just imagine they're just like, would you do it for free? Yeah, no, we can't afford that. Most profitable company in the world can't really.
What if we gave you the new iPhone every year?
Yeah, there you go. New iPhone. Yeah, we'll give you a $1,000 monitor stand.
I wouldn't be surprised if they recorded it on iPhones, to be honest. Like, you know, iPhone takes good video, and it just seems like somebody's holding it and his hand's a little bit shaky the whole fucking time.
If COVID taught me anything, it's that no one fucking understands how microphones work. And I guess, you know, we're kind of privileged in that regard that we interact with microphones more than a lot of people. But then I think about it and I'm like, no, I feel like a lot of these people fucking should know how to interact with a microphone.
Right.
You know, like it just like, what? Pro tip. If your microphone is smaller than a penny, it's not good.
You know,
just
not
putting it out there.
That's not true. The like studio lapel mics are really good.
Yeah. There's some excellent lavalier mics that really pick up audio well.
I was thinking your pinhole mic on anything.
Yeah, that's not good. No, we bought some new lavalier mics for when they do town halls at my office shortly before COVID. So obviously we've gotten some great use out of them.
Obviously.
And the first meeting that we have, the manager that had requested it specifically was like, "I don't want to hold a microphone anymore. You need to buy some clip-ons." And so we got these, and he put his on perfectly. He knew exactly where to place it. He tested it, made sure it sounded right. And then his boss, I go up to her and I'm like, "Do you need any assistance with putting on the mic?" And she was like, no, I got it. And I was like, you know where to position it and how to position it and everything? She says, yeah, I've done this plenty of times. And she puts it in her fucking pocket.
What?
Yep.
What?
It's right in her breast pocket. Just like right there. That's where it lives now.
It?
Yeah, in the pocket.
Oh,
Like,
grown
just
adults, people.
Just the cord is going in there. It's not clipped onto fucking anything.
That's a choice.
Yeah. She even had like she had so many places on her blazer that she could have clipped it. She was like, nope, right in the fucking pocket.
If anyone ever wants to know what our uncut episodes are like, this is basically pre-show material right here. So I am going to go ahead and wrap us up. Guy, did you have anything else for us this week?
No, I'm just kind of discouraged that this was so bad you cut us off.
No, it's not bad. I was just like, we're kind of, I'm like, this is good. This is good uncut content for next episode.
We're becoming the parody of Uncut now.
Yeah, this is what's happening. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for being on, Guy. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.